Good morning on this Sunday, February 11th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. The push to oust Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger from the state election board is intensifying in the Georgia General Assembly. Also, the Georgia Senate passes a tax-free holiday for guns and ammo. And a conservative social media star running for a House seat in a special election Tuesday could make history, but not if Governor Brian Kemp has anything to say about it. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Janelle are all here. We got a little bit of a different set this week. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
A move to oust Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger from the state election board moves ahead in the Georgia House. House Bill 1112 is the latest move by some Republican lawmakers to change how elections are run in Georgia, while also targeting the Secretary of State. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has long time defended the legitimacy of the 2020 election amidst continued and unfounded claims of fraud. But his stance has also made him a political target. House Bill 1112 aims to remove him from his non-voting position on the state elections board.
He would lose his ex officio capacity.
Charles Bullock, professor of political science at UGA, says that would make Raffensperger more vulnerable.
He's not in the room, then it would be much more likely that there would be criticisms and attacks potentially on him, and he wouldn't be there when an issue comes up to say, well, let me explain this, and that might then take away whatever kind of criticism was about to bubble up.
The bill would also attach the board to the state's accounting office, plus authorize the body to investigate the election division of his office.
Within a matter of very few years, the situation moved from the state elections board being an arm or an assist to him and carrying out his duties to one in which might be set up as a challenge to him, and that it would have the authority to investigate him, investigate his office, investigate people who are working for him.
Love to hear from Charles Bullock. Well, the Georgia Senate already passed a bill that would allow the state election board the power to investigate Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, his handling of elections. Theron, we'll go to you first. You've got Republicans in both the House and the Senate coming after Secretary Raffensperger.
Well, I agree with you on Dr. Bullock. He's sharp, and he's a go-to source for many of us when we want to know the history of politics in Georgia. And I know he's basically what he said in your package, just like, all right, this is sort of unprecedented, right? Because we all know this. The Secretary of State started off as the chair of this board, and now he's being proposed in this legislation to be removed as an ex officio member. And so I agree with Dr. Bullock. I mean, look, I'm going to probably, shock Phil and Janelle when I say this. I mean, whether you're Democrat or Republican, if you're duly elected by the people of Georgia to carry out a duty, which is to administer elections, then you need to be in the room. You got to be involved as much as you can be to make sure that these elections are fair, secure, and more importantly, that the people trust that the experts are in the room. So to remove him from this board, which by the way was created by Republicans, this is what they wanted to oversee elections, and they're attacking one of their own. I mean, I'll let Phil and Janelle sort of talk about the insights on that, but ultimately, it shows you where we are as a state, that this election coming up in May and November and maybe even March is going to be so important how we administer it, because the nation is watching, and you've got to have the Secretary of State involved in some capacity.
Phil, some are even questioning, though, if these moves are constitutional, if they should pass.
Well, that's fair. There's always going to be, in this day and age, court cases on almost anything when it comes to removal and switching around. But Theron, you can be CEO of a company and not be on the board, and you still answer to a board. And so this is what the Republicans are trying to do. After all, there's been so much accusations. Fulton County alone, for 20 years, has been the subject of fraud and mismanagement, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a trust issue here. Let's be blunt about it among the Republicans. There's a big debate among Democrats and Republicans as to where do we go? Do we keep Dominion? Do we do paper ballots? Do we get new software? And it's a healthy debate. So I don't have a problem. I see what the Republicans are trying to do, and he's still Secretary of State. He still oversees everything, but I think the viewers ought to know, if they don't realize how it works, is that all 159 counties handle the elections, and the SOS, the Secretary, oversees it. This board will oversee the Secretary of State.
Melita, where's the trust lie when it comes to Democrats?
Well, I think everybody has some trust issues about the Coffee County breach and the fact that the Secretary of State never fully investigated that breach. The other thing is, once he was removed as the chair of that Board of Elections, he hasn't attended a single meeting of the board. And so did he really care to begin with, or was he just there to chair the meeting? And I always think of that song from Hamilton, being in the room where it happens. And when he's no longer in the room where it happens, he won't be able to answer questions and head off points of inquiry.
Janelle.
Yeah, I think everyone said it. There's a thing that I think we should continue to keep pushing for, and that's checks and balances, right? So, and to your point, the CEO can still oversee, but not necessarily be a part of the board. It also, I think when you have the SOS sitting at the table, it changes the discussion a little bit too. It's almost like my boss is in the room, so even if I see something that we need to discuss, we don't want to say anything. So, I don't know. I think it's a good move. I think this is going to play out well, and I think we're going to be grateful for it, particularly if, God forbid, something happens and we no longer have a Republican in that seat.
Okay, we're going to keep it moving because we've got lots to talk about. On to the Fulton County election interference case, where a coalition of folks have come to the defense of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Several former prosecutors and defense attorneys say she does not have any conflicts of interest after she disclosed a romantic relationship with special prosecutor Nathan Wade. Janelle, back to you on this one.
Yes, so, okay. I remember something that Melita said that I actually agreed with. You said that this wasn't going to be a conflict of interest because they're on the same side. And I agree with that 100%. I think what they should have done is hit her on her lack of judgment, her lack of sound judgment. I think they should have said that because of her political stance, that could what we see with her relationship with Nathan Wade is that her emotions can get involved and she can make decisions that are not good decisions. The way that she's doubling down on this, personally, I think that they messed up when she continued to double down on it and defend when she should have just said, yeah, I did it, it was wrong, I'm kicking Nathan off and I'm moving forward. So I feel like this will, I don't know, I just think that the whole conflict of interest may be hard to prove, but they can definitely hit her on a lack of judgment.
Melita, you have a lot to say. She was like rearing up over there.
Well, so first off, there are two sides of the debate here. One is the purely legal court of law debate. And I think the 17 experts who filed this amicus brief have a lot to say that I hope the judge will pay attention to. The other side, some of the things that Janelle is raising, is the political side of this case. The one that matters is in the court of law, based on the rule of law. The political is a completely separate issue. And, this is Super Bowl Sunday as this show airs. And we're kind of at the beginning of the third quarter with this case as a whole entity. We've still got pretrial motions to go, we've got jury selections to go, and then the fourth quarter will be the actual trial itself. DA Willis needs to look at her team and figure out if the political side of these allegations has damaged her team. And she's got to put the strongest team in place for the fourth quarter and to finish out the entirety of this game. Because winning the game is a conviction for Donald Trump and all of those charged against him. And all of this other is a distraction from getting to that fourth quarter.
So let's talk about that, Phil. We have about 2 minutes. Optics. We always talk about optics here. If you have Fani Willis and Nathan Wade sitting together in the courtroom as they proceed with this case, what's everybody going to be thinking? I mean, to talk about the optics there.
I can answer that question. It's bad optics. And, there's a third point here, aside from the 2 points you rightly are stressing, and that is money. Follow the money. We've got public taxpayer money that's involved. And so you've got a conflict of interest, in my opinion, right there when you've got your romantic relationship right there as your chief prosecutor and you're moving forward. And let's look at the giant taxpayer money chunk that was gotten, and we look at the trips that both of them took. There's a very serious, just to remind the audience, the conflict of interest is one thing. There's a serious state and federal allegations that are being leveled against her. And I would not be surprised if the judge said this is too much, especially dealing with a former president of the United States. We have to have a clean slate here. I wouldn't be surprised if Fani Willis and Wade were removed.
Theron, what's your take?
When we taped last week, we were sort of speculative. Again, that's one of my favorite words, and also optics, whether or not Judge McAfee will actually have this hearing. And we got to wait and see, will the hearing happen?
It's supposed to be on the 15th.
On the 15th, right, so on the 15th. So to Melita's point, these 17 experts coming out before that hearing, I mean, you got to call it what it is. That was a big sort of boost to Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade saying, okay, we've admitted we have a personal relationship, but it still does not affect the facts of this case. The facts of this case is that we have 19 defendants who have been indicted by a grand jury, and they have to go, and the remaining that have not pled guilty have to go and face trial. So it does not affect the facts of the case. Now, when we come back on the show after the 15th, if the judge decides to go forward, and I said this last week, to your point, Melita, can the office put together a strategy and a team to assemble a jury that's going to ignore all the distractions and focus on the merits and the facts of this case? And that's what they got to be able to do and clearly articulate it to the public. And the judge has also got to look at the evidence and everything in its totality to see if it can still be held in the manner in which we want it to.
You've got Janelle shaking her head.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the problem. It's particularly, if they're going to come from Georgia, the jury comes from Georgia, they know this case. And I think as long as you have them two sitting up there side by side, if I was the other side, I would say, did y'all discuss this last night over dinner? I would hit them on everything. So I do think that's going to play a role.
Real quick, if I say this, look, let's be real on this panel. We know the Republicans are saying, hey, this helps Donald Trump basically delay this trial long enough that it doesn't become, an issue before the election. Democrats are saying, we really hope that the DA Willis didn't mess up this trial so he can go forward. I think that the judge is going to have to weigh both of those options, and we can't say that it's not going to work because the jury ultimately hasn't been decided yet.
It's the evidence and the witnesses that are going to be the key to all of this. And there's some damaging witnesses that are going to come forward. There's some damaging evidence that's going to come forward.
All right, we'll leave it there because we'll be talking about this next week. You've heard of a tax holiday for school supplies. How about one for firearms? We'll discuss next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
This week, the state Senate passed a bill that would allow a state tax holiday for the purchase of firearms during the first week of hunting season. Janelle, I'm just going to go right to you. Do we really need this?
We do. Okay, so first of all, we do have too many deer. It's a little wild. Okay, I had to move all of my rose bushes because the deer ate all of my roses.
Now, the AJC
so that's number one.
reported that we are seeing a 4% drop in the deer population every year
because they're hunting. But two, I think this would be good for people like me, who's a gun owner, and when I want to buy little things, I need more bullets. I know I can go during this week, and I'll get the sales tax off. But lastly, I think we got to keep in mind that when we have all this stuff happening, the instability right now in the globe, across the country, across the world, with the wars, we got to consider the fact that there's so much instability with Biden. We got Iran doing these small little digs at us, so God knows what they're planning. Having a armed citizen group, having an armed citizen militia is strong. It's strong. It helps us to stay safe. A lot of countries won't attack. A lot of our adversaries won't attack because of it. So I'm pro all of this.
Melita.
Well, you mentioned the school tax, sales tax holiday, and we got rid of that a few years ago. If we're going to do something at that time of year, it would be far more useful for the majority of Georgia families, especially single mom families where maybe they don't climb up into deer stands, to reinstate the sales tax holiday on school supplies. I'd much rather see that sales tax holiday than a gun holiday.
So Phil, here's my question, because politically, if Republicans really need to get the suburban moms and those independents back on their team, is this going to do it?
Sure, I'm going to take you to a firing range, and you can see
we own guns in our house, and we have them all locked up, and we've got them in the car, and they're all locked up.
My point is that there's a lot of suburban women.
We need to incentivize people to buy more guns.
I don't have a problem with it. Obviously, we're for law-abiding citizens to have guns. We do have a Second Amendment for the right to keep and bear arms. You have a right to defend yourself in crime-ridden neighborhoods. And then, of course, there's two Georgias. There's rural Georgia with our sportsmen and hunters, and then there's urban area. I can see where some people, I can see both sides of it. I can see why some people may not like this, but these aren't the bad guys that are really doing this.
No.
Well, let me say this really quick. And Melita, you made a good point, and I want to emphasize what Melita just said. It's been since 2016 we have not had a back-to-school sales tax holiday in this state. Okay, so it shows you where the priorities for the Republican Party.
We can do
are, right?
both.
Hold on, but I'm going to prioritization, right? You gotta state your priorities. And what the Republicans are doing, in quote State Senator Jason Estevez, this is not about guns. It's not about hunting. I'm a responsible gun owner as well, Janelle. This is about politics, and what they're doing is that they're putting basically red meat scoring political points at the expense of Georgia families. I think that we should reinstate the since 2016 this sales tax. I don't necessarily think we need to incentivize more people to go out and buy ammunition and guns, because guess what? We're an open carry state. We're guns everywhere. People can walk in any place. They can walk in here right now. Now, they won't go through our amazing security, and I think you're a little strapped up every now and then, Phil. You'll protect us.
Me too.
And you probably strapped up too.
I will defend you.
Don't worry, you'll be protected.
But to Lori's point, I just think that, and look, I met a lot more women, let's be fair, that have gone out and purchased guns because of safety. But it's about being a responsible gun owners, and I believe that
we all agree with that.
But if you tell these
we all
women
agree with
and these parents, hey, you can get more sales tax to basically have pencils and books and school supplies versus a tax incentive to get more ammunition and guns, I think they would take the side.
It would be more palpable if they added in the safes and some of the other safety.
That's a part of it, right? If you go to a gun store.
Yes.
There are bills to do that, though,
Right, so
Lori.
if they want that, then they need
By
the safety
Republicans, there are
too.
bills to have safes and all of that.
Okay, we're going to move on because tax relief is one step closer to law for everyone. Phil, it was a unanimous vote in the House to back state income and property tax cuts.
It is really great to see Democrats every now and then for a tax cut. This is amazing. My heart, but anyhow, I praise that, and this is what we need to be doing. I like the fact that we're going to be on track to phase out the state income tax. I think that's going to help us. Yeah. We've got a great reserve right now. Now's the time to do this.
Melita, you don't get a lot of unanimous votes down there.
This is very true. It's a very toxic environment, so it's great to see this unanimous vote.
All right. Well, a bill to require cash bail for 30 additional crimes is headed to Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp's desk after the House gave it final approval. But critics called the bill the criminalization of poverty. Theron.
This is a cruel piece of legislation. I'm going to use that word because, look, we've had this debate on the show about cash bail bonds. And look, at a time where our jails are overcrowded and overflowing, we have countless studies across the country that show that cashless bail has no negative impact on the public and in public safety. And so Democrats went rightfully so to the well. And then the thing that really concerned me the most is that it's targeting churches and it's targeting organizations that are put in place to make sure that people who are in the poverty line, that are poor, black and brown people specifically, have the ability to bail themselves out. And so, again, this is about prioritization, all right? I predicted this is going to happen. We were all kumbaya. We all left the eggs and issues breakfast. We've been at these meetings and we all love each other, right? And the tax cuts were good. Let me just go on the record for saying that. But now you're starting to see the politics in the election year, and Democrats came out pretty strongly against this bill.
Janelle.
Okay, so the fastest way to avoid this is to not do the crime, right? Sure. Then you don't have to worry about having to post bail. That being said, it's interesting that this came up because this morning in my little Bible reading, it talked about not showing leniency to the poor or showing favoritism to the rich, but being fair. That's what it said. And I thought it was interesting when I saw this, because at the end of it all, the worst kind of hatred, in my opinion, is to remove consequences. When you remove consequences, you make it where people can go out there, commit crimes, they can put themselves in these situations, they don't have to pay for anything, they don't have to sit in jail, they don't have to do anything, then what's going to stop them from doing it repeatedly? And particularly drug addicts, right? Sometimes sitting in jail for about a couple of months will put them on the right track. So I personally don't have an issue with this.
All right, coming up, an interesting House race is shaping up in Columbia County with a candidate who could become the state's youngest legislator.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
A conservative social media star running for a House seat in a special election Tuesday could make history. 21-year-old CJ Pearson could become the state's youngest legislator if he wins, but not if Governor Kemp has anything to say about it. Phil? This is from your old stomping grounds in
It
Columbia
is.
County. Tell us
And
what you know about
from
this
your
race.
old stomping ground
Yes.
too. Well, I tell you what, I have family living in Columbia County, and it's basically a Republican primary for a special House seat. And this young man is 21 years old. I have problems with a 21-year-old running for this. I think it's great that he's interested in politics. So what if he's a Trump supporter? I mean, that's part of the Georgia Republican Party, just like the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is a coalition of different factions. I think it's a little overblown saying that Governor Kemp, doesn't like this guy. Sure, the Kemp camp probably wants someone who's more of a mainstream Republican. That's not a problem at all. In fact, Gary Richardson is a former county commissioner in Columbia County. He's pretty well respected. I think that there could be a runoff because of the low turnout. It's always tough in a special election to get people out there. But I think that he's making a lot of publicity because he's 21 and it's kind of interesting.
And he was also the campaign manager, Melita.
For Vernon Jones, and he first came to public attention when he was 12 years old and posted a lot of stuff on social media. The other thing is that there is also a special election in Carrollton for a state Senate seat, but the mailers in this Augusta race are inflammatory. There is a lot of media and there's a lot of really nasty mailer going out through the mail. So it'll be very interesting to see the returns on Tuesday night. There are two women in these races, both of them Democrats.
All right, moving on. A new proposed city in Gwinnett County is one step closer to reality and heads to the governor's desk. The city would be called Mulberry. I just wanted to say that, right? Located in the northern part of the county. There, we really haven't heard much in the way of cityhood lately, but this one passed.
Look, to be fair in this was introduced by some very, well-respected Republicans, Chuck Efstration, Senator Clint Dixon, both of whom I've worked with on different matters at the legislature. But when you talk to the Gwinnett County Commission, and particularly the commission chair, I've been told by a lot of sources that the commission knew nothing about this. This bill was filed pretty quickly. It was fast-tracked through the legislation. It was also a lot of questions about whether or not it actually followed the rules to actually, make sure that everybody can hear the facts on it. And then the last thing is, from talking to the commission, they're going to work with the Carl Vinson Institute to make sure that the public understands all the facts that come along with a new city. And then there's also some sources tell me that some residents, not all, that's in this particular area, Gwinnett County, were very upset about a apartment complex that was coming to the area, so they questioned the zoning codes. And so, again, this was rushed. A lot of the Gwinnett delegation Democrats were concerned about it, but ultimately it's been fast-tracked to the governor's desk, and I think now I want to applaud the commission for working with the Carl Vinson Institute to get the facts out to the public.
Well, it would go to the voters too once the governor signs.
We're correct, yeah, but they got to vote on it. Correct.
Yeah, so Janelle.
Yeah, I think that. So I know Bill White is somewhere annoyed. I had to be a little petty because
the Buckhead advocate.
Right.
I was not going to bring it in.
I had to be a little petty, but no. You know what? I like when I see smaller cities kind of branching out and creating their own space. I live in Sandy Springs. We did it. I think Rusty Paul is doing a great job, excellent job. I think he should do a master class on how to do this effectively. But then on the flip side, you have cities like City of South Fulton that it seems like it just can't get it together. So I mean, it can go either way when it comes to this. I don't know about the fast tracking and all of that. All I know is that if this is what the people want, I think they should have it.
And the commission is not against new cities. They just didn't like the process and how it was handled.
Melita.
Well, the interesting twist with this city is that they're promising this city will never levy property taxes. And that is a very interesting, different twist for creating a city.
That's a very good point. In fact, I was thinking of Peachtree Corners, which has that. And also, I'm in favor of a comparison. The county needs to state its case, the city needs to state its case, and the voters decide.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Janelle, we'll start with you.
All right, my winner is the Howard Family Farm in Monticello, Georgia. To Laverne, Raymond, the twins, I just give you a huge shout out. I heard that a little birdie told me that the whole family was in town for Super Bowl, and I hope you're having a wonderful time. I can't wait to come and try the velvet cake that you're making. And they do farm to table catering, so they cater from their farm. So I thought that was wonderful. And I have one loser. My loser is Jill Biden and the Biden staff. have. We've got to start calling out this elder abuse. I think it's so unfair. The cognitive decline is so obvious. So they're my loser this week.
Darren.
All right, happy birthday to my good friend Deria Watley. She's a big fan of the show, so I got it in. Happy birthday. Also want to say hello to the ladies at Fulton County Vital Records. They said I look better in person because my lighting doesn't do me justice, so I got that in. Also, good, just amazing win from my good friend Killer Mike, Michael Render, for winning the sweeping at Grammys. Definitely Killer Mike, want to give him a shout out for doing a great job. And then lastly, Black History Month, I want to recognize Tommy Smith. You guys remember him. He was famous for raising his hand in the civil rights movement during the 1968 Olympics. He's been a DeKalb County resident for 20 years. There's an amazing documentary on Stars right now called Withdrawn Arms, and he also runs a very successful nonprofit called the Tommy Smith Youth Foundation in DeKalb County.
Nice. Melita.
Well, my winner this week is the legendary Janice Rothschild Bloomberg, who celebrates her 100th birthday on Tuesday. She and her late husband, the Rabbi Jacob Rothschild, were pillars of strength for the temple when it was bombed in 1958, and they worked on the Martin Luther King dinner honoring him after the Nobel Peace Prize. And among her many accomplishments, she's the author of 5 books, including a memoir published just 2 years ago. She's certainly lived a well-lived life.
Wow, very nice. Phil.
I've got a winner who's a prominent Savannah resident who passed away, Arthur Genlett. He was a member of the Board of Regents. He was a longtime legislator, and he will be missed. And my loser is Joe Biden. I could go with you on Jill Biden, too. That was a disastrous press conference the other day. I don't care what political party you're with. I think you ought to replace somebody like that who's running for president.
We'll leave it there, folks. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.